Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about breaking up with your boyfriend with the help of Dungeons and Dragons. All right, let's get into it. So I have an incredibly unique view of Dungeons and Dragons. I think that the world thinks Dungeons and Dragons is a toy. They think it's a game. I think Dungeons and Dragons is not a toy. I think it's a tool. I think it's a tool that we can use to improve ourselves. I've thought this for a long time, and I've talked about it extensively here. But I'm always trying to say it to you in one quick, concise sweep, right? And we've arrived here, and I want to explain to you how we got here and what we can do with Dungeons and Dragons. And and breaking up with your boyfriend with the help of Dungeons and Dragons is everything I've been thinking about for years, all in one kernel. So let's get into this. All right. So it is my humble opinion that right now, unlike any other point in history, Dungeons and Dragons is perfectly positioned, perfectly provisioned, perfectly adequate to help you break up with your boyfriend. Okay, so let's get into this. And you're like, hey, wait, Scott, hey, I've been going out with my boyfriend for 4 years now, and that's a real world problem. You're right. I think I want to break up with my boyfriend, but Dungeons and Dragons can't help me with that, right? Dungeons and Dragons isn't built for that. You're wrong. In my humble opinion, you are 100% wrong, and I'm going to present evidence to you today to prove to you that you are wrong, and that if you want to break up with your boyfriend, Dungeons and Dragons is the perfect tool to do it with. Here we go. Okay. All right, so Scott, D&D is fantasy, and real life is real life, right? Well, first of all, you could shut that noise down now. They have been mixing IRL and D&D since 1983. Right? The 1983 Saturday morning cartoon made into reality by Gary Gygax was like, hey, we could just tell a story of a fighter and a cleric and a wizard and a rogue, and everybody be happy. But let's not do that. Let's say that the main characters in the Dungeons and Dragons shows are real players who were trapped in the game. Let's mix D&D and IRL. So one, you could shut all that noise down about D&D and IRL being separate. They've been mixing it for decades, almost from the beginning of the game, okay? And it has only progressed, right? And recently, a major change happened in Dungeons & Dragons that makes it so that Dungeons & Dragons, in my humble opinion, is perfectly positioned, perfectly provisioned to help you solve real-world problems. Let's get into it. All right, what's the change? It's the Faerun Dominaria Canon Bridge. Listen carefully. So, Dungeons & Dragons canonically connected itself to every single Magic the Gathering set that's ever created. And the way they did that was they bidirectionally bound all Dungeons & Dragons realms to all Magic the Gathering worlds using Ravnica and Theros Dungeons & Dragons books, and using the Baldur's Gate and Adventures in Forgotten Realms Magic the Gathering sets. So, all Magic the Gathering universes and all Dungeons & Dragons realms are canonically connected through the Faerun Dominaria Canon Bridge, in my humble opinion. Okay, I think that's, if you look at that, there's just no way other to see that. Then, here's the kicker. This is the critical part. A Magic set for Fortnite was introduced. It is the Secret Lairs Fortnite Magic set. That means that every single character in Fortnite is canon to Dungeons & Dragons, in my humble opinion. That is the Faerun Dominaria Canon Bridge, and it is the most important thing to happen in Dungeons & Dragons. It's one of the top 3 occurrences in Dungeons & Dragons. I think the birth of Dungeons & Dragons is number 1. The increased in complexity for social interaction in Strixhaven is number 2, and the Faerun Dominaria Canon Bridge is the 3rd most important event in all of Dungeons & Dragons in 48 years. Here's why, okay? Fortnite contains Luke Skywalker. Fortnite contains, Rey Skywalker, Batman, and Spider-Man. They're all canon in Fortnite. But you know what else is canon in Fortnite? Listen carefully. LeBron James, Ariana Grande, Bruno Mars, and Naomi Osaka. Those are not fictional characters. They are real characters. So they can show up and shake hands with Mordenkainen on Forgotten Realms on any day. And Mordenkainen can serve them on IRL Earth, right? when LeBron James in your Dungeons and Dragons, it is completely canon. It is completely appropriate to run a Dungeons and Dragons game where Mordenkainen is working as a barista Starbucks in Brookhaven, Pennsylvania, and he hands a coffee to LeBron James in our world. That's canon, right? And the reason why is there's a canon saying all these worlds are connected, right? And Dungeons and Dragons even has done this for years, connecting IRL Earth to Dungeons and Dragons. It's all over. There's a history of it, right? So once you realize that LeBron James and Ariana Grande and Naomi Osaka and Bruno Mars are real people, and they are in Fortnite, and Fortnite is directly connected to Dominaria, and Dominaria is connected to Forgotten Realms, that means you can run this Saturday a Dungeons and Dragons game where Mordenkainen hands a latte to LeBron James in the Brookhaven, Pennsylvania Starbucks, and that's all canon. That's canon, right? Because Wizards of the Coast and LeBron James's Enterprises and Fortnite and Disney carefully built that canon bridge into Dungeons and Dragons. They all work together. And the reality is they had no idea at the time that it was happening, right? But they used the momentum of multiple intellectual properties, and we have arrived here, right? IRL is canon. Our IRL Earth is absolutely canon in Dungeons and Dragons. If you just logically look at the Dungeons and Dragons books and look at the Dungeons and Dragons that contain Magic the Gathering, and look at the Magic the Gathering sets that contain Dungeons and Dragons, you could see there is a canon narrative bridge that has been carefully built. Okay, and it's there. Okay, all right. So why would you use Dungeons? So here's what can happen and should happen, in my humble opinion. Now, your player can come and say, I think I want to break up with my boyfriend, and I want you to run it this Saturday. I want you to run it this Saturday in our Dungeons and Dragons games. And you're like, well, right now you guys are ready to slay a dragon in Mount Hope now. And you're like, yes, that's correct. But I want you to have Mordenkainen come to our, work as a barista in Starbucks for a month, and I'm just going to go to my Starbucks I'm going to stat out my character in Dungeons and Dragons as myself, and I want you to run me breaking up with my boyfriend in IRL Earth in Dungeons and Dragons. And all right, now I hear you. You're like, what? Why would they do that? I'm going to tell you why. You care about your dungeon master. Dungeons and Dragons has told us, care about your players, keep them safe, do for them. They're the center of the story. They ask, you do. That's the model. Okay, that is the model. It's all. A dungeon master's role is to sacrifice to make the story useful and compelling for every player at the table, right? And so your player comes and says, I think I want to actually break up with my boyfriend, but I want you to run it this Saturday in Dungeons and Dragons, right? So Mordenkainen hands the coffee to that player's actual self in the game, statted as a Dungeons and Dragons character, right? And then in the game, the player says with the mouth of their player character, okay, X friend, Y friend, and Z friend, get in the car. I'm going to break up with my boyfriend, and I want you to come with me. And all the player characters go together. They all go to the boyfriend's house and sit on the couch. And she said, and the player, gender doesn't matter, could be any of your players, right? And the player says, boyfriend, we've been going out for 4 years. Every time I talk about a future together, you laugh or you make a joke, and I want a future together with my boyfriend, and I know I can't have one with you, and I'm breaking up with you. Now, why would you do this? Well, we live in the actual world, and in the actual world, the most valuable thing you can have to actually craft your life is the 3A life cycle: abstraction to action to assertion. You can run through that entire thing through Dungeons and Dragons, and your dungeon master can give you wisdom they know that you don't. And the dice can interrupt you and the dungeon master. You as a Dungeons and Dragons player and you as the dungeon master. And it can bring forward things you never expected, right? And so you can walk through steps that are challenging in your IRL world, in your IRL life, through Dungeons and Dragons, and after abstracting it, playing with the concept, doing the action in the game where there are infinitely lower stakes than actually breaking up with your boyfriend, and then asserting, was that good? Now in Dungeons and Dragons, my boyfriend is with a new partner. How do I feel about that? I didn't know, and that partner is a real named person. And I didn't expect that my boyfriend would be with that real named person, but my dungeon master knows me and my world better than I do, because my dungeon master has objectivity, right? And then you can go, oh my gosh, I don't want to break up with my boyfriend. Or, oh my gosh, I should have done this 3 years ago. And for no money and no risk, right? You can do things in D&D that you can't do in IRL. And what's changed is, previously, Wizards of the Coast gave no clues that this was appropriate or useful or valuable. Now it's canon. Look at the Faerun Dominaria canon bridge, and you will see that what Dungeons and Dragons has been aiming for, a multiverse, which includes our world, has positioned it to be useful at a level we have never expected or never intended, right? Or we never intended to be here this early. I think we always knew this was where Dungeons and Dragons was going, as a model for IRL, right? And now we're there. We've arrived there, and I think we're all shocked. We are all shocked because nobody saw the Faerun Dominaria canon bridge coming, and that's where all this is coming from. All that is my humble opinion. Are you going to use Dungeons and Dragons to break up with your boyfriend this week? I want to know. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.